Hey guys, it's Matthew Greenwood. So tonight at the Fireside chat, we're going to be talking about dynamics of energy around our families. And this is tonight's going to be an interesting one because obviously we go through a lot of issues with family at times. Sometimes it can be great. Um, but what I'll do before we start, I've got to do a little bit of housekeeping. So this is me throwing myself into it. Normally Adair does this, but I'm going to be doing it this year. Um, so what I'd like you to do is, if this interests you tonight, what we're going to be talking about around family and energy dynamics around family, please go and tell your friends or anyone you think might be interested in this, because we're going to be talking about all kinds of things like the energy interactions, energy games that people play, how energy gets projected, how we start off as a child, and the sensitive energy that we are as a child, and how that can be damaged or nurtured, depends on how we work with it. So please tell anyone you think that might be interested. Um, Now, this will also start to bring in tonight the spirit guide readings, the free spirit guide readings for a lucky person. So a half-hour spirit guide reading will be coming your way. Noretta Wicksteed from New Zealand. So Noretta has connected with us last week, I believe, and so Noretta, looking forward to doing a reading for you. And so we're on Matthew Greenwood Spiritual Journeys Facebook site. We're also in Meditation with Matthew group, and we're on My Time TV Live. So here we go. Now, guys, what I am going to talk about also is later on is all the workshops I've got running. So, but we'll go to that at the end of the evening. Now, please, if you've got any questions about family and energy, throw them at me, because that's what I'm here for. And this is what makes the evening a much bigger evening, because questions open it up to all kinds of stories, examples of how energy works. So just going to go quickly through a few names. Hey, Jasmine, how you going? Good to see you're on board. Fiona, hi Fiona. Rodney, Kylie, Paul's here. Hey Paul. Lily, g'day Lily. Christina, Rose Davidson, and Tracy Ravenscroft. Wow, I haven't seen you for a while, Tracy. Really want to get back over to WA at some point. Seem to be getting a lot of people coming in from WA at the moment. Hey Joe, and hi Julia. So, all right, let's get into it. So, when a child is born, we'll start right at the beginning. When a child's born, there's a few things here people don't know about. When a child is born, the aura of the child is still encapsulated within the mother's aura right through to about the age of puberty. So not only does a child go through those experiences at puberty, or teenagehood, I should say, not child, but teenagehood, is not only is there a lot of emotional stuff going on, a lot of hormones going on, but literally the auras between the mother and the child are separating. So the child is becoming their own person. So sometimes, let's say there's been a bit of control on the child through this time, then that separation of the auras can be quite extreme, and there can be a bit of anger and a bit of angst around the child releasing, and they don't know 100% what's going on and why they're angry sometimes. It's just that the auras are separating and the child is desperately wanting to be their own person instead of being controlled. So these are the things that are going on. Also, when a child is first born, most people understand that we have an aura and that we have a chakra system. One thing that goes on with a child is the child's chakras are not fully formed. And it's really interesting how the Eastern philosophies, when they're doing drawings or diagrams of the chakra system, normally you see a person in the lotus position, and each of the chakras is representative of a flower. So very cool, because a chakra is a little bit like a flower, but for a child, the chakra is actually in bud. It's kind of like this. As the chakra opens up, so does the energy. Now, what happens is, what makes or helps the chakra to open up is experiences. So they can be negative experiences, they can be positive experiences, they can be any sort of experiences, but it's those experiences that open up the chakra, and it's bringing information in, and sometimes that information is held within the chakra system. And so within the chakra system is everything that you've been through your life. And so that's how and why your experiences affect everything that you are as a person, from your beginnings right through to present time and into your future. So all of those experiences relate to energy, and they're within your aura. And this is why when you meet someone for the first time, you feel everything that person is about. It's really interesting when you start to understand fully what's going on. In the beginnings, when a child is growing and learning, what happens is a child isn't necessarily capable of intellectualizing on something that they're observing, or seeing, or hearing for that matter, because they haven't got the maturity to actually take that in. But what they do is they feel. So the way a child generally brings in information into their energy system, into their emotional body, mental body, spiritual body, is through feeling. And so that feeling is not only taken in by words that are said, it's taken in by thoughts that people around them are thinking, because everything has energy. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. They also take in the words that are said have an energy that's driving them, just as thoughts do and just as actions do. So those three things, actions, thoughts, and words, generally have an energy that's driving them, because there's a person behind that. So if a child is being loved and nurtured, and there's a lot of support from the parents around a child's growth, well, then a child's going to grow up in a pretty good way, and in a healthy way. The issue lies when there's a lot of control, that when there's a lot of emotional baggage that the parents have. And look, guys, before I go any further, we're all guilty of this to some point. We've all had baggage, and we all have baggage to some degree, and this does affect our children. And but what is the main thing is, are you working on that baggage? Have you been dealing with that? And that's the main thing, because the more personal work you do on yourself, the less you're actually putting on your children. And this is really what we're aiming for is to have our children growing up in a great environment where there is love. But if we don't know how to love ourselves, then obviously it's difficult for us to love fully and openly to our children and to friends and family. So once there is the child comes into the family structure, this is where programming starts, where we get learnt behaviour and patterns. So that typical one is the negative things, because we're talking about the things that affect us the most on a negative level, the things that get in the way of our growth. It's great when we're getting that nurturing and love and caring too, but it's the things that damage us or create difficulty for our life that I'm mostly going to be talking about tonight. So when negative things are happening around us, and this can be actions that are directly, or I should say, directed at us as we're growing up, or it can also be the personal issues that are going on for, say, example, our mother and our father as we're growing up too. So those things that are going on for them, we feel. And remember, coming back to the beginnings of when a child is first born, the main way a child takes in information is by feeling. They learn to interpret language and to understand what words mean, but the main thing is a child learns through feeling and through the experiences of that feeling. And so this then taints our ability to love, to care, to communicate in a healthy way. And so while we're in that family unit and those same patterns are going on, we don't see any different, that it's whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. All we do is we follow suit with everything that is going on. And of course, we begin to play out these patterns because this is what learnt behavior is. It's basically just behavior through observing and copying, because this is how kids learn, and kids want to be, there's a little part in children. They want to be like their parents. They want to impress their parents. They want to, they see their parents as the closest thing to God, in those early years. But it's when things start to go a little pear-shaped that that's when issues begin to come up. So when you think about a child's aura, it's very fragile. It's easily damaged. It's susceptible to manipulation, and it's quite common, just through my experience personally, but also my experience as a practitioner, with helping a lot of empathic people, sensitive people. There seems to be a strong level of sensitive people being manipulated through their life, particularly in childhood. Because one of the things, and why I say this, is because, just taking a slight sidestep to the left, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, even spiritual people, is that life force is a needed part of us living, just like food and water, and having a roof over your head and having clothes and all that kind of thing. We don't live without life force. Now, people talk about energy, they talk about life force, but a lot of people don't realize that we can't do without it. So there are healthy ways to get life force. through meditation, through going into nature, into the forest, to doing nurturing things for yourself, being around loving, caring people. Um, and so that's positive ways to get life force. The problem with what's going on the planet, which is definitely changing at the moment, it's high on the spectrum of people wanting to actually clear this one, which is fantastic. Um, is a lot of people get energy from other people, so a lot of this learnt behaviour that we take in from childhood is about playing energy games. Now, I have talked about this in talks in Thursday nights last year, but let's go through it again. So there's four major ways that people play energy games. One is acting out being a victim. Another one's acting out being aloof. Another one is being an interrogator, and another one is being an intimidator. And we can be any one of those, and sometimes we can jump from one to another. And I've seen that happen. Um, so it's one of those things that when people are taught to play energy games to get life force, because if this is the only way they're taught how to, then this is what they do. But what this does, this really slows your life, it slows your growth down, and it slows your life down. And this is also what gets in the way of people really opening up spiritually, and being able to see auras, being able to see guides or spirits and all of that sort of thing. So, if you want to know how to actually um, be more open spiritually, then the best thing to do is to actually work on your baggage and work on these energy games that you play and learn how to not play them, and learn where they came from, which I teach in level 1 shamanism, which is actually coming up soon, in about 2 weeks, to be honest. Um, so this is one of the major ways that people source their energy, which is not exactly the best. It's not a healthy way of doing it. So these energy games, how do they look, or how do they show themselves? So most people understand about what it is when you're around a victim or a poor me. They generally play out a lot of dramas about how their life is really bad, and that they can't seem to get out of the quagmire. And when you give them advice, they don't seem to want to take it. There's always an excuse why they can't. And that's because they get more out of pulling you in to try and help them all the time. And in that process, they're actually taking your energy. So that's the poor me. The aloof is another one, which actually revolves around not talking much at all. And so when you hold everything within, and you've got people around you that are wondering what's going on, why you're not communicating with them, trying to get information out of you, it's like poking you with a stick, and you still don't give any information. Those people on the outside of you, if you're playing that game, who are wondering how to get in to connect with you, that actually wears them out, because what you're doing, if you're playing that game out, you're actually taking their energy. If they're wanting to try and get something from you, and if you're not going to change, and you're not going to do anything, then they're not going to get anything from you. So, but you're there, you're actually taking their energy if that's the game you're playing. An interrogator is a control freak, basically, someone who just pounds you with questions and statements. Why are you doing that? Who's been talking to you? Where have you been? That's a control freak, and that is a form of intimidation. But generally, the full-on overt energy game is the intimidator. which can be as little as a look. And if you know the person well enough, and because we're talking about family, if you've got say a father that's a bully, or someone that is in your family that acts that way, that's an intimidator, sometimes just a look's enough, because you know what that person's about and what they're capable of. And of course, family are great at pushing our buttons because they've known us the longest. And this is where it can be a bit of a minefield. So I'm just going to do a little bit searching for questions, if we've got any yet. Um, uh, 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 Hi, Michelle. Now, Lily's got, I'd be happy to discuss the experiences I have had with my elders. As you know from our sessions together, Matthew Greenwood and I have had some challenges to navigate through with his explosive energies. Being proactive rather than reactive has been a huge healing journey altogether. So, reactive is what goes on with energy games. Thanks, Lily. When you're in an energy game, it's never calm and relaxed. Normally, there's a lot of slinging of energy back and forth, and this generally plays out, and it is very reactive from both sides if it's continuing. If you're not playing into the game, then it wouldn't be continuing. Sometimes when people are being game players and they are reactive, there's nothing much else you can do other than walk away, because when someone is playing an energy game, what's going on is they're linked in to a very damaged child that's inside them. So you can say, a child, an inner child, because this is really what the inner child is all about. It's a reactive part of us that's still hooked in or linked in to damage that occurred to us energetically, emotionally, physically, mentally, when we were young. And so how I see this in the aura is, when someone comes to see me for help to clear these things, there's like a wormhole of energy going from them in present time right back to a child. And so I just take them on a journey back through that wormhole, and that's where we go to help them deal with these issues that they have around. Generally, it's around family, and so this is where huge shifts happen, and it's great to see when those shifts do occur, because great healing happens through that. Oh, thanks, Lily. Lily's just saying, I can't thank you enough for the support and healing you've shared with us. Pleasure, Lily. Hey, Alison, Janelle, Nikki Hine, and Karen. So, okay, now I'm coming to your workshops. So I've got quite a few workshops coming up, Karen. And I'm going to rattle that off at the end of the evening. So at about 5:10 to 8. All right, so let's just have a little look at what to do with family, because, we're talking about present time now. Oh, okay. Got a couple of big questions come in, so we might take the opportunity to work with them. So Tracy's sent a message in. I suppose as a mother, you don't think about that if at the time you don't understand, you don't understand about energy. That's right. I'm quite shocked to understand it differently as a parent now, knowing what I know. Look, if we came in with a manual, wouldn't that be great? But unfortunately we don't, and there's not enough education around this stuff. It's certainly growing, which is fantastic. Um, but the one plus I can certainly give you, well, there's many pluses to this, but one big plus around you actually working on your emotional baggage is that your children, whether they're around you, physically around you or not, energetically, they're still connected to you, and just through the fact that they know you, and and they, you actually help them to heal by working through your own emotional baggage. And this is a huge thing to know. And there's a lot of healing that comes from that. And I've seen some amazing things happen where I'll just pull one out of thin air. A lady I know who's in her 60s um, was disconnected from her son. Her son was in his 40s, um, and we did some, let's say, spiritual work. So she hadn't seen him for some time, for many years. Um, I took her to a, let's say, a spiritual safe place in her thoughts. We meditated on, um, let's say, a forest that I got her to imagine she was in. But what this forest does, once you can find this space and the way we set it up, um, this space is a space to actually do many different things. You can actually use this to connect with guides. You can use this space to connect with people that have passed, but you can also use this space to connect with people that are living, and maybe there's some issues going on there that can't be worked out physically. Um, so we did a whole lot of work with her son in this space, so on a spiritual level. Within a couple of weeks, she got a phone call from her son wanting, he wanted to catch up with her and have a coffee. And I thought, how amazing is that? You know, just after one visit to this place and her doing a lot of healing around, um, the interactions between her and her son too. So, all right. So Rebecca's got something to say. Hi, Matthew. Sadly, in the last couple of days, my friend's husband took his own life. They have two young children. Their mother is very concerned about how the kids will be affected by this tragic event and how they will go through life with the knowledge of their dad's suicide. Any thoughts? I know this is a very tough subject. Yep, it is a tough subject. I've heard a lot of varying comments from mediums about suicide, and some with a lot of judgment. In the end, suicide is just a way of leaving this physical life. Is it a great way to do it? Probably not, particularly when there's family and particularly children involved. The thing probably the kids will need to know, and it depends what age they are, but as they get older, they need to be educated really on what would have been going on for their dad at this point and why he did that. When a person's going to do an act like suicide, they must be in an extremely bad place. And one thing I know is sensitive people in particular, particularly when that sensitivity hasn't been nurtured and they don't fully understand that they're sensitive. Sometimes this is a very difficult thing for them to deal with, and that thing is life. Particularly at the moment, because look, what's going on energetically on the planet now is absolutely huge. There's a raising in frequency that's going on, has been for about 14 years. This raising in frequency is a great thing, but it's affecting different people in different ways. So how it's affecting, say, people that are on a spiritual growth path they're still having their buttons pushed at times, but as long as you're doing work to ground your energy, to keep grounded, you know, work through your emotional baggage, all that kind of stuff, to advance spiritually in whatever way works for you, and that's different for everyone, then, you know, that's a great thing to do. But if you don't have that nurturing from birth, um, and a person, particularly men who's, you know, sometimes brought up in that old school mentality that men don't show emotions and you've got to suck it in. And it's a bit of a primal thing too. You know, men are supposed to be the breadwinners and the, you know, go and bag the elephant and take it home to the village. Um, and it's not always easy for a man to communicate when they can't find the elephant, when issues are going on in their life, and it's difficult for them to talk about it. And so sometimes this can just go so inward that a person, and this can be a person that's playing aloof, that goes very inward and has difficulty talking about things in general. Um, so that's why it's so great that, you know, there's a big mental awareness thing going on, particularly for guys too, but it's for everyone, um, to know when to ask people, you know, if they're okay, if you feel like there's something going on for them. It's huge to be able to have this open and out there, because for too long it's been tucked away and you don't talk about depression and all of that. So this raising in frequency that's happening, people that don't have that nurturing, that have difficulty around dealing with their just everyday issues, um, they're they're very open to feeling this way, feeling depressed. One of the first things that generally happens with depression is base chakra drops out. So when base chakra drops out, a person changes. Um, they they don't they don't seem to be happy. They don't seem to be on track, open, communicative. Um, they tend to recluse. So that's the first warning signs, I guess. Um, but you know, for this is when communication is needed for the kids. Just coming back to the question, um, it's so important that the kids, as they're ready to take in information, are shown and taught what actually mental illness is all about and what being sensitive is all about, so that they, particularly with boys, but of course whether they're boys or girls, it's really important that the kids are educated as they get older, as they can take in more information, as they're ready. So, and that's, but it's look, it's no mean feat to be able to help children through that experience. I've been on the outside of that. I haven't had personal connection with it myself, but I've certainly, as a practitioner, been there for people that have gone through that experience. Um, and so, um, if you would like to talk about it on a personal level, I'm happy to help out. If you think the the your friend's wife needs any help, please throw her my way. If she just wants to have a chat on the phone, I'm happy to do that. So thanks for that, Rebecca. Hope that answered your question. Trish, energetically, is there a difference between a damaged inner child and someone with mental health issues? Example, borderline anxiety. Well, yes, there is, in a nutshell. And it all comes back to the base chakra. So when there is an inner child, um, um, energy that's there with a person, and look, most of us have had some sort of separation at some point with um, a younger us. Um, When this separation occurs, and it's not a complete separation, but energetically, it's like a fracture, I guess you could say. That's probably closer to it. When this fracture of energy occurs, the first thing that generally happens is emotions are repressed. When emotions are repressed, quite often memory becomes repressed as well. And when that starts to occur, the base chakra definitely is minimized. So when base chakra is minimized, when it's not functioning to as good as it can be, then we tend to repress ourselves. We tend to go inward a lot, and we tend to have anxieties and fears. So anxiety can be a very minimal thing. I don't know what the actual um, technical jargon is on anxiety, but any sort of physical experience that you get from having anxiety, it can be nervousness, it can be out of control shaking, um, it can be curling up in the fetal position on the bed, having the curtains drawn and no light on. This is all anxiety, and it also relates to fears as well. So the two generally go hand in hand. So, and this is where it can be a little scary in the mainstream medical system, because so many kids that have uh, anxiety and fears at a very young age. I've heard of kids as young as 7 and 8 being put on pharmaceutical drugs that are really meant for adults. And the issue all of these things do is mask what's really going on deep beneath. Um, I would love to talk to a psychiatrist that'd be willing to hear the opinion of someone who's been doing this work for 30 years, and what I've seen around how people are damaged by repressed energy, but also the outcomes of when that repressed energy has been released, and a person then can live a full life without the drugs. But what I've seen so often is when people haven't had the spiritual nurturing, um, and they haven't actually been nurtured through this whole process of them just understanding that there's nothing wrong with them. They're just sensitive, and they're maybe just empaths that are a bit out of control and don't have never been shown how to ground their energy. What's going on with their energy system. Um, and so with this, um, I've seen it so much lately of when someone has been on pharmaceutical drugs for long periods of time. And what I mean by long periods of time, I'm talking like a couple of years and upwards. And when you start getting into 5 to 10 years down the track, those pharmaceutical drugs, and should I say the cocktail of pharmaceutical drugs, causes mental illness. I know that a doctor listening or a psychiatrist listening would shake their head in horror, but it does cause mental illness, because what happens a lot of the time, the drugs don't successfully squash your spiritual abilities. Then a person can quite often, even when they're on pharmaceutical drugs, can then quite often, because it doesn't totally squelch your spiritual abilities, they can then go on to taking recreational drugs, um, and then quite often throw themselves into doing ayahuasca or something like that, and their bodies just their minds and their bodies just aren't able to deal with everything that's going on with that. So one thing that needs to be uh, everyone needs to be educated around is what it is to be sensitive and what's really going on with sensitive people, with the energy system. This is the information that needs to come out. And this is why I do what I do, because I was there. I haven't been on, thank goodness, pharmaceutical drugs for any mental issues, but I know plenty of people that have. And all they are very, very spiritual people that either see auras, see guides, see spirits, but they didn't have anyone in their family that believed that. And so they just took them into mainstream medicine, and the rest is history. And so this is where things get difficult, because a lot of mainstream practitioners don't want to know about this stuff, because they think it's all, we're a bunch of Fruit Loops. But what's happening more and more now is that mainstream medicine cannot fix what's going on. They're finding out that mental illness is on the rise rapidly, depression is on the rise, and more people are looking for alternative ways of finding out of what's going on. This is where we come in, because we have information, and particularly, when you start looking a bit deeper into what goes on with the energy system, you can actually answer questions as to why people do get depressed and get have anxiety. Okay, so Adair, same thing happened with an ex. After working with you, Matthew, the energy flow between he and I was clear, and the experience of communicating with him has improved massively. Thank you. Oh, my pleasure. And it's amazing what can be done. You've just got to be prepared to dig a little deeper, or take a different path. Tracy's saying, love that interconnectedness. Thanks, Rebecca. Anything else? Great. Okay. So we're at 7:42 here in little old Adelaide. What I thought I would do is just start going off into a slightly different area. So with, we talked about learnt behavior, about programming, about energy games and patterns. How do we deal with our family on a present day level, say parents, who are still playing energy games? This is where it takes courage, because we need to stand in our power a lot more. Pardon me. One of the things that I know for a fact happens when you just say, let's just pull something out of thin air, Christmas. We've just been through Christmas. And when the family get together at Christmas time, it can be a joyous time, or it can be a complete and utter nightmare. It depends on how everyone is within the family unit. So I'm talking, I don't mean just parents and kids, I mean the whole package: parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, the whole package. And when these things go on, it's a lot of these patterns are never challenged within the family unit, because everyone's kind of out to impress everyone else, and everyone's likes to take a side. And one thing I've learned is one of the best things you can do, doesn't matter when it is, whether it's in the middle of Christmas dinner or giving presents, but when people are playing energy games, when there's any sort of game playing going on at all, and I mean on a negative level, there's no room for that in our life once you start to live this way, once you start to separate yourself from these things. And so you have every right to step away from that situation and just say, look, I'm not prepared to put up with what's going on. When you guys are prepared to just be loving and caring, then I'll come back. But until then, you've got every right to step away, and but also to be heard, to say that you're not going to accept that anymore. Because the problem is, until someone says that the way people are communicating here is not good enough, that it's damaging, it's not nurturing, and isn't love being shown, it's judgment, it's and it's energy games, then someone has to call it. One of the things I always suggest to people is when they're going into the lion's den, and that lion's den can be anything from going in to maybe have a meeting with their boss, or a worker, if you're the boss, that's an intimidator, a game player, or with any family members or the family in general. One way to really prepare for that is, number one, to look at all of your family members and just see the games that they play, and this can be learnt through the workshops that I run. Once you can actually look at those games and see the games that you play have possibly played also, and begin to step away from those games that you play and source your energy through meditation, through finding peace, clearing your emotional baggage, all of that sort of thing, then you become a different person. But what can still happen is when you go into the lion's den, you can have your energy system affected quite strongly, and the major part of the energy system that will be affected is the base chakra. So what I always suggest to people is do a little bit of prep work before you go into the lion's den. So do some grounding. I've got some processes that I take people through to strengthen their energy system, and this I teach through meditation, and but also one-on-one. And look, if anyone does want to see me, happy. Probably it's easier and quicker for me if they ring or text. So my phone number is 0410 and that's a way to get in contact with me. And if anyone's got any questions on where to go with all of this, happy to give you a bit of a quick chit chat on the phone, and then you can decide how you want to attack it. Preparation is far better than damage control. I always find. No one likes damage control. So Lily's back. Okay, so Lily's just, I think she's talking about something I talked about earlier, about being sensitive and being young. So that was me seeing spirit at an early age, then being labelled and medicated on and off from 7 years, there you go, to 30 years old. Now 3 years clear and embracing my psychic life. Beautiful. Thanks, Lily. Cassie, sounds so familiar to what's been going on with my family. And here's Kylie. Hey, Kylie. It's really interesting when you have learnt to recognize the games. Makes it a lot easier to deal with when you can see it. And this is the problem. The problem is when you don't know what's going on, but it just keeps continuing, and you just keep getting pulled into things, and it's like you're in the middle of it before you know it, and then you've got to try and extricate yourself from it, and it makes it really difficult to do that. So until you actually fully understand it, and that's what the workshops I run are about, or the one-on-one work that I do is about. So look, I'm going to leave it at that. This is a rabbit warren of a conversation. It can go so many directions. But what I'd like to quickly go through is just what I've got coming up, because I know there are few people interested in the workshops. So I've got level 1 shamanism coming up on the 13th and 14th of February, where we look at energy games, and I start introducing people into feeling and reading energy and understanding more about the energy system. I've got a drum making workshop coming up on the 7th of March, and in that we make a 13-sided drum, because I bring in information about the 13-moon calendar. So every moon cycle has a different energy, and you get the chance to write that information down on the inside of the drum frame, so that you're armed with it when you go to a full moon meditation or a drumming circle. And I've got level 2 shamanism on the 13th and 14th of March. And that's obviously an extension of level 1, but one day of that, they're both 2-day workshops. One day of that is totally wholly and solely out in the forest, and I get you connecting with the forest energy and all of the different levels of spiritual energy that we can when we're out there. I have a medicine wheel workshop, and if anyone's interested in that or they're not too sure what it means, I'm happy to talk about that over the phone. And then I've got, or you can look that all up online on Matthew Greenwood Spiritual Journeys. And I've got a level 3 shamanism, which is all about shamanic body work. So different ways of working with body energetically, and a bit of physical stuff too. And of course I do readings, so spirit guide and aura readings for people, and deep emotional and trauma energy release. So it was great being here tonight, guys, and thank you very much for your questions and all that you brought, everyone. And next week, just go to the pad. Next week, we're going to be looking at feeling energy. So what I'm going to do is when you come along next week, next Thursday night, I want you to bring a guinea pig. I want you to have a guinea pig there that you can actually use to feel their energy. So not a real guinea pig, another person. Guinea pigs have energy too. And so look, it'd be great to see you next week, but yeah, please contact me if you need any information on what I've talked about. Happy to share, and really looking forward to next Thursday night. And thanks, guys, for being a part of tonight. It was great to see everyone here. Thanks, guys. Have fun. Have a safe week.